Welcome back to the Sports Complex on a Tuesday afternoon. On the show today, we'll get into some Big 12 basketball. Texas with a big game tonight on the road in Lubbock against Texas Tech. One of the last trips for any Longhorn team to Lubbock for the foreseeable future could be tonight, and we'll get into that game. The other Big 12 action around college basketball. Little story from some Texas women's basketball. Texas baseball is in action tonight against a team that already has a big upset on their record. Can they get another one tonight, or Texas baseball handle business? We'll get into that. Little mock drafting too. Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the day. Some NFL talk. The combine is getting fired up. We aren't getting to the events and the coverage yet, but it is happening right now, and some NBA talk as well, including, not limited to, and always a big part of the show, you guys and your text messages. 512-447-3776. 512-447-3776 is the text line number for you guys to join the show. You guys drive the show. I just try to keep it on the rails, which means you guys, whatever you want to talk about, send those texts in. I try to answer as many as I possibly can. I try to get to every single one. We don't always get to them all, but we do appreciate everybody who texts in. So keep sending those in. If you have something you want to talk about, we talked a lot of Texas basketball yesterday. If you want to keep talking that, if you want to talk Texas Longhorns, if you want to talk mock drafts and in NFL drafts and the combine, we can get into that. Texas baseball. I can't go long on Texas baseball, but we'll talk some Texas baseball as well. Cowboys, Texans, Spurs, Mavs, Rockets, anything. You want to talk about it, we'll try and get to it and talk about it on the show today. That's what we do here on the Horn. I always appreciate talking to you guys on the text line. Appreciate meeting you guys when I go out. I did get to have a nice night of in last night, enjoying not a bunch of big games on. Watch a little North Carolina. Watch a little Baylor and TCU, which we'll get into in just a second, which wasn't a great game, but didn't really get into too much. Just kind of took it easy last night on a Monday. It feels we're getting to the part of the year where the days feel like for some reason they're getting longer and longer, but it's I feel like it's just waiting for a few big things to come up, and we're ready for the combine coming up and basketball season getting into full swing. And man, excited for Texas tonight to see if this is a game that Texas can get a big win in. Definitely last night, that game with Baylor and TCU, that game did not go as well as you would have hoped as a game with two teams that have been playing pretty well. It ends up Baylor gets the win on the road against TCU 62-54, but that is low scoring for both of these teams. Baylor has not been a great road scoring team, but better than 62 points, and TCU should have put up well more than 54. They just shot really poorly from three, TCU did. Goes 5 for 19. They shot 26% from the three-point line. That is not going to be able to get going. And one of the things TCU has been doing really well is moving the ball quickly, getting up and down the court, getting into quick setups. They've been winning fast break points basically every matchup in the last 2 or 3 weeks. They went 8 for 8 with Baylor. They tied. Both had 8 fast break points. TCU did win 22-9 on points off of turnovers. So they still were able to take the turnovers that they got from Baylor and turn them into points. That has been what has been a huge part of TCU turning it around later in the season. But it was not enough as they slowed the game down, Baylor did. And both teams shot under 40%. That's not what you normally see with these two teams. It is kind of a Big 12, but Baylor is definitely an anomaly in the Big 12 of a much higher scoring team, and they have a higher scoring output than a lot of other teams. BYU is kind of in that category as well. They play tonight. But it's just not necessarily the funnest game in the world to watch, but a pretty close game. But Baylor gets a big win, 62-54. You kind of, if you're Texas, would like to see that because you have a win over Baylor. Also, TCU and you are kind of fighting around in that range of teams that are, not. And I know we can say Texas on the bubble. If they lose tonight, they're definitely on the bubble. If they win tonight, they're not. But TCU and Texas are kind of both in that range of just on the edge of how many Big 12 teams are they actually going to take in the tournament. Do they decide to slip somebody else in, especially if you get more and more, smaller conferences that have different conference champions throughout the season and upsets into the conference championship tournaments? Those types of things will make less spots. Do they decide to not put 10 Big 12 teams in and they try and cut down to 9 or 8? And that's where the TCU and Texas and all of those teams are going to be right in that point where you have to be a little bit more careful. So a loss for TCU is not necessarily the worst thing for Texas. Get them another conference loss and show that the top of the Big 12 is really, really good this season. Texas is going to be taking on Texas Tech, who is a team who has looked at points in the season like they're one of the best in the Big 12 and up at that level. They've tinkered off a little bit as, the shooting has gone down a little bit. Their scoring has gone down a little bit. Teams have started to play them a little bit better. They've come back down to earth. They're still a good basketball team, and Texas taking them on in Lubbock tonight is just going to be a hard matchup for Texas to get into. There are some matchups that are better for them than there were in a game in Houston. There's matchups that are better than a game against Kansas where you were just outsized and, there was some things you had to do, but you were drastically outsized. You are somewhat the opposite of that tonight. They do have Warren Washington, who's a big 7-footer playing for Texas Tech. That's going to give Dylan Disu a lot of trouble this tonight. If Dylan Disu stays out of foul trouble, I think he'll figure out ways to get around Warren Washington a little bit, but it will slow him down. Don't expect a 25, 30.9 out of Dylan Disu tonight. If he did, great. But Warren Washington's going to be in there. But the rest of the lineup is a little bit smaller. They do have a couple guys. They'll be able to stop a Max Abmas or a Tyrese Hunter and put someone on there that's a little bit bigger. Tyrese Hunter had a good game last time Texas Tech and Texas met here in Texas, even though Texas lost that game. And by the way, this is an extremely different looking Texas team than played Texas Tech earlier in the season. If you looked at that, Dylan Disu played 17 minutes. Caden Shedrick and Brock Cunningham were both in the starting lineup. It was just a lineup that's very different than what you're going to be looking at tonight. I think you will see Caden Shedrick play a little bit and Brock Cunningham play a little bit more because there is a size advantage for Texas, unless the speed of Texas Tech gets too much. But I think you'll see them try to go inside a little bit more and beat up and try and get Warren Washington in foul trouble. He's gotten in foul trouble a couple times this season. So if you can get to him and maybe get him a couple fouls going at him with a Brock Cunningham or with a Shedrick or with a Disu, you may see them go after that. Texas also in this game really has to watch out for the points off turnovers. They allowed too many turnovers in the last game against Texas Tech. They allowed 23 points off of turnovers in that last game. But I think you're going to be looking at really one of the big pieces again. And I know we say this a lot. We know Dylan Disu is going to go try and do what he can do inside against Warren Washington and this Texas Tech team. You expect him still get in that 15 to 20 range, hopefully at least 15. We know Max Abmas, and look, I pound the table enough on this. You guys know I'll pound the table on it. Try and get to the free throw line, Max. Please try to get to the free throw line. They don't necessarily have the size anymore where you can say they're just going to block everything. So get to the free throw line. But if those shots start falling, Texas has not necessarily been the worst shooting team this season on the road, even though their numbers have dipped near the end of the season now in these last couple of weeks, because it's dipped everywhere for them in the last couple of weeks. They're a team that really didn't necessarily have the same drop-off as some of these other teams did when they went on the road. Their numbers, drop a little bit like everybody's does, but only a few percentage points, so not the worst thing in the world for them. But when you look at the size advantage that Texas will have, it really comes in with Dylan Mitchell at that 4 position, where he has size and height and speed at the 4 for Texas, where they're going to try and play guard. So he's going to have to be careful with the ball, not have turnovers. But if he can get those drives, get a couple steps in, pick the ball up, and go right at the basket, Dylan Disu only has to step back a couple steps, and you're going to be able to play a little 2-man game. Whereas Warren Washington comes over for help defense for Dylan Mitchell, you drop the ball right off to Dylan Disu and let him go to work, get 2 points for you real quick. But let Dylan Mitchell drive. He had a decent game against Texas Tech last time they played. You'd like to see him go try and get involved more in this game as well, because Dylan Mitchell being able to drive, being able to create offensively, creates even more mismatches. It allows the defense to collapse in more, which will allow Tyrese Hunter and Max Abmas to try and get some more shots off. I think you'll see IT Horton continue to play in this game a little bit more. They're trying to get him going because they just need any offense if he can get going at any point. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the same things we've talked about. They're going to come out, and Texas is going to try and play their style of basketball early. They need to be more physical than they've been. We know that from day one. This has been a team that you have to say has to get more physical. They've shown it at points. They showed it in second half versus Tech earlier this season. They've shown it in some other games in second halves, but not for 40 minutes. You like to see them come out and play just a little bit more physical off the bat. But if those shots are not falling, and if you're getting them and they're getting you open shots and they're kind of playing off a little bit, they're daring you to drive the paint. They're daring you to do those things. Run right into those guys. Go try and get to the free throw line. Texas Tech is good about getting to the free throw line as well. They have their guy Pop Isaacs, who's been their leading scorer. And when his numbers start to go down, he's going to come and attack. He's going to try and get Dylan Disu to make a mistake, because we know Dylan Disu has improved greatly of not making the bonehead plays. We know he's gotten way, way better at, not making just a silly misstep where he played great defense for 10 straight minutes and the 11th minute reach in and pick up a foul that meant nothing. They're going to attack that. They're going to attack Shedrick. They'll attack Cunningham because they know the refs are real quick on the whistle on Cunningham, which, at some point is just unfair that he just got a reputation and now these Big 12 officials just don't care and will call anything on him. And he does foul, sure, but they call a lot of stuff where this season he's had to back off a lot. And, because the style of play for Texas is not so physical, when he comes in and tries to be physical, the refs just don't allow it for him. And but we'll see. They'll attack all of those guys, try to get some guys in foul trouble with Pop Isaacs, and try and get him on the free throw line if he's not hitting. And again, you don't want to let any of these guys get off. You had that problem with Kansas that you were trying to play a little bit off, stop the points in the paint a little bit, try and get away from just allowing them to drive on you all game and use their size. So you step back a little bit to dare them to take the harder shot, and you allowed them to get some hits. There's some shots going in early. And it was just all downhill from there for Texas. So you are going to have to be able to get in some matchups against this Texas Tech team where you really going to have to try hard to keep your intensity up, keep your energy up, and understand one thing about this Texas Tech team that we have seen all season long in all of their games. There is zero quit in this Texas Tech team. These guys will fight you till the bitter end. If you can get up, you'll get up 35 points at half, and it's not over. They'll still fight you. And I'm not saying Tex will be up 35 at half. But there's a Texas Tech team that is not going to go away. So even if Texas does play well, gets a lead at half, or if Texas is up by 5 or 6 with 4 or 5 minutes to go, that is where you really have to crank up your intensity and your energy. Know what the tape you've been watching is. Know what the scouting report of this Texas Tech team is, and understand that you have to go after this Texas Tech team for 40 minutes. Those last 8 minutes for Texas Tech has been really good to them this season and not really good to Texas. That's the last 8 minutes is where you kind of really worry about Texas in this game. And I know you worry about it all over, that if Max Abmas continues to miss shots and refuses to go and try and create outside of taking jump shots, then yeah, you're probably going to be up against a hard place, because they do have a big 7-footer going up against Dylan Disu. There is going to be a hard point if Max Abmas doesn't want to play basketball and he just wants to shoot. You're going to have problems. I think he can go in there and create. I think he can do more things. I'm hoping and praying that eventually one day he'll start to get it. But in the last game, we saw he was able to get out and create stuff to get Tyrese Hunter open, and Tyrese Hunter was hitting those shots. If you get Tyrese Hunter open, can he hit some big shots in this game? Can Dylan Mitchell attack the paint and get some shots and create mismatches? Get Warren Washington to move off of Dylan Disu. Get their defense to collapse in. Get IT Horton open shots. Can Kendall Weaver be a bigger impact this game playing against Pop Isaacs, where he'll probably be guarding him a good percentage of the game, trying to bring that energy? Can he get him to create some turnovers, trying to create shots, get him to take bad shots, get him into situations he doesn't want to be in? If you can create those mismatches, then Texas has a decent shot in this game. This is not a game like Kansas or Houston where they really had to bring their 110%. You got to be better than you've been all season to win games. This is a winnable game if you go out there and play the right style of basketball. I know. That's a lot to be asked of this Texas team in the last 2 weeks, that they have not looked particularly good, especially against good teams. The only thing we can say, statistically, they have not lost back-to-back games in February. Now, they haven't won back-to-back games either. They've been trading back and forth. If that trend continues through the last game of February, then that would mean that Texas would get a win tonight. That's what you're hoping to see against the Texas Tech team, because it would mean a lot. Because if you win this game against Texas Tech, that means all you have to do is win your last 2 home games, and you're 500 in the Big 12, and I think 500 in the Big 12 gets you into the tournament. That's what you're looking to be, 500 in the Big 12. That also means winning one Big 12 tournament game, by the way, because that would knock you back down. I know tournament games don't count necessarily in the standings, but we're saying it would knock you down to having one more loss in the Big 12. So you got to get a tournament win as well in there too. But I think the win tonight puts you in a lot better place. And Texas Tech is already pretty much in. I don't know if they have that same amount. We know the fans are going to have huge vitriol for Texas. We know the fans are going to be coming hard for this Texas team. Going to Lubbock, they hate them. This is, again, the last matchup between Texas basketball and the Texas Tech Red Raiders in Lubbock. So the fans are going to be bringing out everything they can. Be a little bit later game too, so a little bit more drinking for these fans before they get in there. It'll be a crazy environment for Texas. Hopefully they can thrive off of that and show that they have that intestinal fortitude to be able to get out and put a win tonight. Texas Tech's going to be playing hard as they always do, but I don't know if they have the necessary, that they really need this. I think Texas back up against the wall here could be a huge win for Texas. We'll talk about it tomorrow, and you'll see me get yelling and screaming again about what's happening, or yelling and screaming that we're happy that Texas figured out what to do against Texas Tech. But that's happening tonight. We'll also see BYU and Kansas tonight. BYU's headed to Kansas. This seems like another great matchup for Kansas, where BYU has just not been the same team on the road at all. They've been really good at home, but not the same team on the road. The BYU is allowing close to 80 points a game on the road. That is going to be a problem against a Kansas team that came against Texas and looked on fire. McCullers is still going to be out in this game. Did not stop them against Texas. Don't know if it's going to stop them against BYU either. But BYU does have some firepower. They could come out. If they want to come out and start hitting threes, they haven't been as great on the road. But if they hit some big shots against Kansas, they're going to be looking to pull off an upset as the new guys in the Big 12. But it looks like this should be a Kansas win without too much effort and too much drama against BYU tonight. I want to mention before I get to some baseball talk, women's basketball, I saw this morning, so I want to spread the love to women's basketball out there that they're doing the 10K for 10K. They've done this before. The final regular season game, the senior night for Texas women's basketball is on Saturday. It's on Saturday versus BYU. It's a 7 p.m. game. And the deal is, if 10,000 people come to this game, buy tickets, come to this game, pack it out for the Texas women's basketball team, show them a great send-off for a team that has overachieved greatly after the Roy Harmon injury. This team that is number 3 in the country right now. If you guys can go out there and support, tickets are $9 and $15. That's what I'm saying. The expensive tickets right now available for fans is $15. 10K people come in. Vic Schaefer will donate $10,000 of his own money to the neighborhood Longhorns. It's a really cool thing that he does to try and support his team and get some people out for this last game, get them a great send-off, get them ready for the tournament where they're going to go try and make a run. Said this is the number 3 team since that Roy Harmon injury. They have solidified and galvanized themselves as a unit that they felt, even though they're, the favorite in most of these games, that they had a little bit of that underdog mentality and that junkyard dog mentality that this women's team needed, that a Vic Schaefer team needs. So a cool thing happening there. If you want to get your tickets, check that out on Texas Women's Basketball website. But yeah, March 2nd, it's Saturday, 7 p.m. You can get tickets for $15. You can get the tickets for $9 for the general admission tickets. If you have kids, if you got no plans on Saturday night, you want to go enjoy yourself at the Moody Center, check out a fun game where it's going to be rocking for women's basketball. Check that out. 10K for 10K is what they call it, to support the Neighborhood Longhorns Foundation. It'll be a cool thing there. So shout that one out. And then Texas baseball tonight, taking on St. John's. Texas baseball taking on St. John's. Max Grubbs is going to get to start tonight. He's pitched twice against Cal Poly in relief. Pitched against Cal Poly. Actually, pitched Cal Poly once. He pitched against San Diego twice in relief. But this is a St. John's team that did opening day beat number 2 Florida. Florida, who's a really good baseball team, they get the upset against them. First game of the season. Those games get rained out. The rest of the games that series are canceled. So we don't know how the rest of the series would have gone. But St. John's gets that first big win early in that series and early in the season. They went 1-3 against Houston. So a good matchup for Texas against St. John's on a Tuesday matchup. A team that has a lot of firepower. We'll see if this pitching staff can stick with what they were trying to do against Cal Poly, where they didn't allow a run But the big thing you saw was they lowered that amount of walks. That was a real issue that opening weekend, was the amount of walks that were given up, and David Pierce was getting pretty upset about it. He was pulling guys out of games pretty quickly when they were not having the control. So we'll see tonight against St. John's if they're able to get that control still going with Max Scrubs and the rest of the bullpen and get a big win. We'll also see Tanner Witt did not pitch this weekend. If he comes in out of the bullpen, if they try and use him in a different situation, or if they're saving him and maybe using him in the matchup in Houston in that tournament this weekend. But a good matchup tonight against St. John's. Again, when you're playing a team that already has one big upset, they have the confidence for early in the season that they can come in, and if you give them a couple runs, it's going to be, everything against. I believe that won that first game 9-5 against Florida. So they were able to put up some runs. If you give Sub some runs, they're going to feel like they have a really good shot against Texas. You don't want to take that loss against St. John's on a Tuesday. They're a pretty good baseball team. I believe the series overall is tied 2-2 between St. John's and Texas, so you get the rubber match tonight as well. If anybody wants to watch that, that'll be a fun time to check out. All right, let's get to the big fat poll of the day. We'll push this mock draft stuff back to the 5 o'clock hour, but how about we get to the big fat poll today, get you guys involved there on the text line.
Patrick's big fat poll of the day on the Horn.
Patrick's big fat poll of the day today, 512-447-3776 is the text line number. I've got some audio from Stephen Jones from the Combine as things are starting to get heated up. General managers are starting to show up. A lot of coaches are not, but a lot of general managers are showing up. Owners, those types of guys are starting to show up at the Combine, starting to have player interviews and all of that. So let's get in to the question of the day. We saw Stephen Jones mention that he wants to get the deals done, the re-signings of some of their big names, Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott. They want to. He wouldn't give a schedule. He wouldn't give a plan. We'll play the audio in a little bit. But we know those three guys are guys that you want to get re-signed. The question of the day is, who is the most important person for the Cowboys to re-sign this offseason? Now, you could say Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott. Those are your big three pieces. They're under contract for another year. So he could say, is it a free agent that you want to see them bring back for another year? Tyron Smith. Do you want to see Tony Pollard come back? Stephon Gilmore, Jordan Lewis in the secondary. Do you want to see Jonathan Hankins on the defensive line, him come back for another year with that run defense that he's one of the few guys that's done anything to slow it down? Do you want to see Tyler Biadasz at center? Do you want to see him? Who is the most important person for the Cowboys to re-sign this offseason? Is it one of the big three of Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, and Dak Prescott? Or is it one of the free agents? Let me know. That's the question of the day. 512-447-3776. 512-447-3776 is the text line number. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will play a little Hook 'em Up replay talking about the Combine, getting you ready for Combine action. We'll keep talking about it. It's interesting. They're starting to arrive, and you're starting to see the news come out of it and the spins come out of it. We'll talk about it more here on the Sports Complex in the Horn 1019, AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back on Sports Complex on a Tuesday afternoon. Just talk some Texas basketball, a little Texas women's basketball, some Texas baseball. And the big fat poll today, who is the most important person for the Cowboys to re-sign this offseason? Let us know on the text line. 512-447-3776 is the text line rotator. And why don't we do a little hook 'em up replay here, talking this morning about the Combine and some interesting parts of that. It's a little Rod's rant and some different talk, I believe, on this little clip here from Hook 'em Up Replay here on the Sports Complex.
All right. First, before we get started, shout out. We were just talking about Texas State baseball because they're going to face off against Texas in Houston down there in Minute Maid. But Texas State football, just landed a commitment from James Madison quarterback transfer Jordan McLeod. He was the
JMU
Sun Belt Player of the Year, who threw for over 3,600 yards and 35 touchdowns at James Madison. Ty, what did you say? He was 24 years old. He's his fifth year.
That's I googled him. He was born in 1999. It said 24 on Wikipedia. So
okay, yeah. I mean, he's the Sun Belt Player of the Year. This is huge for GJ Kinney because he needed a quarterback desperately. And you got one of the better quarterbacks in the country, actually, reigning Sun Belt Player of the Year, Jordan McLeod, in that system. And I pointed this out last year. If you look at the most improved offenses in college football last year, Texas State is at the top. I mean, they had if you look at most improved offenses, scoring offense from 22 to 23, Texas State is right there toward the top. And they could take another leap with a veteran quarterback. I like that system. I like what GJ Kinney's doing, and I love this acquisition. It is a big-time acquisition. He spent 2 seasons at Arizona in 21 and 22. If you go look at, he spent 2 seasons at South Florida as well, and most recently was at James Madison. So
okay,
he is taking advantage of the transfer portal. Good for him. But yeah, McLeod led James Madison to an 11-1 record.
that's awesome. Well, good for GJ. He can recruit, man. They're
that's big. That's big time, man. Because in the
think
NIL world, that's I'm sure he got big time offers. I'm not saying that they couldn't match it, but it wasn't all about NIL. I don't think for him.
Correct.
Yeah.
No, I think it speaks of his ability. People want to play in that offense, and look, NIL is out there, but it's not like Texas State is overflowing with.
That's what exactly right. Their resources in NIL are limited.
And I'm sure they're doing what they can, but at the same time, it's a tough ask right now. But to get him this late in the process is big because they were going to head into spring practice without a quarterback.
Yeah, because Texas State.
How do they get him? How did he catch up on school? I don't know.
That's a great question. Maybe because he's been in school for so long. Maybe he's
already
done. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Maybe there's something about it. Maybe he's not a grad. Maybe he's a grad transfer. I don't know. I got to go look and see. But remember, Texas State, to your point, made headlines at the quarterback position when Arizona transferred Jaden DeLora. Pledged to the Bobcats, which resulted in starter TJ Finley transferring to Western Kentucky after he led the program to 8 wins and their first ever bowl victory. DeLora left the program after off-field issues surfaced, so essentially they left him without a quarterback. And McLeod's going to give them a proven veteran, presence there at the QB position, a proven commodity. So congrats to Texas State fans. Yeah, I know they're really excited about the program, and a lot of them were stressed out about the QB position as well. They should be. All right, let's talk about the Longhorns. And really, now let's get into there's a certain a factor that is starting to play a bigger role in evaluations of player skill sets by scouts at the NFL level and at the college level, looking at the high school prospects coming out. And shout out to Dave Campbell's Texas Football, because where I got a lot of the information here. But it's an article that they started talking about multi-sport athletes, and they actually quoted Steve Sarkisian in his article discussing multi-sport athletes and how important it is for coaches evaluating prospects coming out of high school, of course, but also NFL scouts who evaluate prospects coming out of college, how they go deep into your background as an athlete and as a player. And for some of those scouts, that they actually are looking more and more at two-sport athletes, that it actually is a positive data point when they're evaluating players and they're evaluating talent, that they, look at the background of a multi-sport athlete. And they revealed that from 2022 to 2024, Dave Campbell, Sex Football, said there were 607 signees that ended up signing with a FBS school from the state of Texas. And 67% of that group, you're talking about 404 of them, ended up playing another sport of some kind. Now, most of the time, that other sport was track and field. I believe around 80% of the time it was track and field. Basketball, it was close to 20% of the time. Basketball was that other sport they ended up playing. But more and more, you're starting to see NFL scouts. Like I said, NFL scouts consider the background even of these elite players. If you go look at the first rounders from 2008 to 2017 in the NFL draft, 88% of them were multi-sport athletes in high school, which is a really, really big number. I mean, that's a huge number. 88% of them were multi-sport athletes. And some scouts look at it as, I like a player with a well-rounded skill set. And, you look at guys who can play multiple sports, who can play football and then play basketball, or football and track, or football and baseball, whatever it may be, that those guys have a well-rounded skill set and an athletic intelligence that you can only gain by, diversifying your athletic skill set and cultivating it in a diverse manner by playing different sports instead of being so specialized. And then there are other coaches like Sark, actually. Sark talks about recruiting multi-sport athletes because of the competitive spirit that you have to go out there and play multiple sports. Talks about how these guys oftentimes are not as selfish as a specialized players. Now, this is something they consider because they know they're not going to be elite in all the sports, but they just like to compete and they want to contribute to the team. They may be elite in football or maybe elite in baseball, but you're not going to be elite in all the sports. But if you play all the sports, it does show that you have a competitive nature and a competitive sickness about you. And it's not always about being the best and when you're praised. Hell, sometimes you may be the 5th best player on the basketball team, but you're the best player on the football team. You may be the 4th fastest guy on the track team, but you're the best player on the football team. But it's all about competing, all about improving, and all about getting better. Sark says, this is a quote from Sark. He said, the first thing I look for in recruiting, and I know this sounds odd, I try to identify really unique competitors. Forget skill set. Naturally, we're there for them because of their size, length, speed, whatever. But is he a competitive human being? What I mean by competitive is, does he play multiple sports? I think that matters. When Sonny Dykes was being quoted about this in this article from Dave Campbell, he says, I think one of the most important things we want to see from people is a competitive spirit. Somebody who's unselfish and somebody who wants to help the team. A lot of times these athletes will run track. They may not be the fastest or the best, but they want to help their team. And that says a lot about who they are and what kind of player they are in their character. So some coaches, maybe even most of the coaches, are looking at it from a competitive spirit standpoint, how to evaluate somebody's competitive spirit, how to evaluate their competitive sickness, their drive. And other coaches are looking at it from, or probably both, this is a guy that's a well-rounded skill set. This is a skill set that can translate because they were a basketball player. They have good feet, hand-eye coordination because they, played, baseball. If he was a quarterback, he can throw from different arm angles. There are certain skills that can easily translate. But, I mean, the more and more that is becoming a popular thing to a factor to evaluate in a player's background as a player, as a football player, whether in an athlete, period, whether it be recruiting them from out of high school or recruiting them out of college. Now, not a lot of guys are playing in multiple sports in college. By then, you're specialized, but in terms of refining the skill set and cultivating the skill set, the background of it and being diverse in the sports you play, I think it does matter. And you can tell it matters to NFL scouts, and you can tell it's starting to matter to college football coaches too.
Yep, without a doubt. And, because when you're playing on a team, Rod, you got to go to practice. I mean, you got to be out there working. I mean, it's competitive. You want to be out there. You don't want to, not be out there with your teammates. I mean, those are things you're looking for, without a doubt. And I mentioned Arch Manning won a state championship playing basketball.
Yep.
We heard from Todd Dodge back in the day that Quinn Ewers was on the track team.
Yeah.
When he was growing up at South Lake
Yeah,
Carroll.
I did not know that, actually. Yeah.
Actually ran track. I mean, at Duncanville, Colin Simmons, the incoming pass rusher, he's one of the. I mean, I don't know how many guys have won multiple state football championships and won a state basketball title.
Yeah.
In the state of Texas, at the 6A level.
Yeah, that's tough.
That's
a big boy.
That's a competitive dude.
Yeah. Anthony Hill, I think, ran track
Yep.
too. I mean, I do think it's important. And also, when you play multiple sports and you're not so specialized at the high school level, I think, the belief is your ceiling is higher once you start to specialize in a sport, because like you said, you got to go to practice for the other sport. You also got to go to school. You got to do other things. And when you're not specialized, you're playing 2 and 3 other sports, and you still manage to achieve at an elite level or a really high level in one of those sports, the projection would be, all right, once they focus all their energy, all of their efforts, all their athleticism in one sport, instead of dividing it up among 2 or 3, that they will exponentially improve as a football player or whatever sport that they decide to specialize in at the time. So that's the belief too, that you don't want someone specialized too early, because it seemed the belief that they hit their ceiling earlier too, that they're probably closer to their ceiling as a player when they have been specialized all throughout their high school career.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like that a lot. All right, so Sark and the Longhorns, I think we'll see some of these in the NFL scouting combine. Multiple sport athletes will be a big topic from
Cooper, the white cornerback that is the last, the one who is going to Cooper DeJean, the Iowa the cornerback who's going to be drafted in the first round. I don't think he's going to work out the combine, though. I think he's going to work out at pro day.
People think he could run one of those the best 40 times.
Yeah, he's going to be
one of the fastest players.
Freak athlete, man. I mean, played everything. He's one of those guys we can talk about later, but he's one of those dudes that was a multiple sport athlete that played like 3 different sports and excelled at all of them, not just playing them. Was one of the best in his state.
Yeah.
In different sports like that.
That's exactly right. He was a basketball player, like Mr. Basketball.
He was
he was a quarterback in high school playing football, but he got to Iowa and decided he needed to play corner and, revolutionize and bring back the white cornerback. Come on, man.
It's time, man. I had some guilt about that at one point in my life, because they drafted me to replace Jason Sehorn. It did not work out the way the Giants planned, but I'm glad now the white cornerback's making a comeback. You guys know I've been advocating for a while. Yeah, he played basketball, baseball, and ran track in high school.
Was fast as hell.
In basketball, he had 1,832 career points. That ranked him behind Iowa and NFL tight end T.J. Hawkinson, and 55 points ahead of first-team All-American and NBA player Harrison Barnes on the all-time scoring list in the state. His 218 steals rank him on the state's all-time list, 8 ahead of Marcus Page. He had the fastest 100-yard dash time of any runner in the state during his senior year, and at the time of his high school graduation, held the 6th best long jump in state history.
God.
Yeah, and he
might be a first-round pick.
And he had offers coming out of high school to play other sports, and to play quarterback. But he chose playing defense at Iowa over playing quarterback. I think South Dakota State, they wanted him to play quarterback, and some other smaller schools wanted him for other sports, but he wanted to play football and he wanted to play defense, and he's going to make history. He's going to be the first white starting cornerback in a long time. Good for him.
I like it. That's where we're headed with the NFL draft. We're looking forward to it. D linemen and linebackers will hit the field on Thursday. Of course, the Longhorns with 11 players headed up there to the combine.
Good stuff there from Hook 'em Up with Ian Rod B. Weekday mornings here on the Horn. It is interesting. All of that multi-sport, the competitiveness, when we see that, it's funny because you draw the correlation now, and and in the basketball world, when they're talking about All-Star Weekend and the guys used to be more competitive, and now the competitive edge changes in different ways. And then we see people complaining more about refs than complaining about the other team. And it's just a weird world of trying to find it. And that's Sark's way of pretty much finding a line in it of how do I determine a more competitive person, someone who wants to compete all the time. I was listening to a thing about Victor Wembanyama about how he was not the guy who was, he's much more, he was more cerebral in it. And it's a different generation of guys that are still super competitive and want to compete in everything. But they're, he wasn't somebody that, like, he understood the way to get, he wants to be the best. So it's not necessarily, I want to go out and compete right away and I need to be on the court right now and doing this. But it's what's the best gives me the best odds to win a title in the next 2 or 3 seasons. It's a different kind of thinking. I think there's a lot more people putting their 2 cents on it with social media. Everybody's reaching in, and it's not so much the old, you just meet up on the basketball court, you meet up on the football field, and you go from there. There's so much more, and there's so much more communication where, it didn't used to be. When people say, well, all these players talk now. Well, yeah, man, all the players talk now. Of course they do. They're all on social media. It's 2 clicks of a button, and you're talking to somebody else versus back in the day, you had to go reach out and try and get someone's phone number at their home to call them up and then set up a meeting and do that. Where now you're like, oh no, we're just all, we're on we're on Twitter and we're talking, or we're on we're on a text thread because we have a mutual friend and we're talking there. The groups, you're not going to be able to stop people knowing each other and that changing the edge of competitive people. But when you find guys and find ways to find people that have that inherent switch in them, that they do not want to lose, that they hate losing and will do anything to fight it, not just on the court and on the field, but outside of it, that's what I think Sark is looking for. And it's an interesting look at what this Texas team is trying to find the best players and the best culture fit for this Texas team going forward. All right, text lines open, 512-447-3776. So we've got already a few in there. We'll get back to those and start answering those in just a minute. When we come back on the other side, the big fat poll of the day: who is the most important person for the Cowboys to re-sign? Is it one of the big names, Micah, CD, Dak? Is it one of the guys that is a free agent that is more important to you to get right away? Who do you think that is? If you want to talk Texas football, Texas basketball, Texas women's basketball, Texas baseball, if you want to talk some NBA or NFL, we'll get into those in the 5 o'clock. Anything you want to talk, hit us up on the text line, 512-447-3776. We'll come back and start getting the text line here on the Sports Complex on the Horn 1019, AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex here on a Tuesday afternoon. Big Fat Poll today. Who's the most important person for the Cowboys to re-sign this offseason? Is it somebody that's a free agent? Is it one of the big three guys that they need to get contract extensions done for? Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott. Is it one of those guys? Let me know what you think. 512-447-3776. You want to talk some Texas sports? Texas basketball got a big game tonight against Texas Tech. You talk Texas women's basketball. Their 10K for 10K is Saturday. They also play again tomorrow night. Texas baseball taking on St. John's tonight. St. John's already got that upset over Florida on the season. They're going to be coming into town, seeing what they can do here. I want to talk some combine, some NFL, some NBA, any of it. Hit me up here on the text line, 512-447-3776. My man Chan kicking things off says, chance of winning tonight for the men's basketball team. I will say chance of winning tonight, it's not terrible. It's better than it's been. Man, I'll give him 50-50. I'll give him 50. I feel like that's pretty nice. It may be like 45, but I'll give them 50-50 tonight because I think they are the more talented team in this one. Whereas in Houston, you know, that team's just really, really good. Kansas was more talented, had better size. You could compete with them. You could beat them if you really played well, but you weren't. I think Texas Tech, you have the talent advantage on them. The question is, can you put it together? Can you get some shots to fall? And if they don't, can you adjust your game at all? Or do you continue to just take up shots and hope that it works? But I'll give them 50-50 in this one because it is a game they can win. They've been able to respond pretty well so far this season. So we'll see. They've been playing away and then home and then winning the home ones and losing on the road. If they can come back and win on the road here, will be huge for the season. So I will say 50-50 on that one. Zell says, please, Max A. Yes. And Zay gave Texas only a 30% chance of winning because of poor shooting spree and their raucous crowd. They've been camping for game tickets in line since Friday where they toss tortillas on the court. It's a football thing, I think. I don't think that's a basketball thing. I think that's a football thing. The rumor I've always heard about it was that it was started because the Aggies said that all there was in Lubbock was like the college and a tortilla factory and there was nothing else there, which is rich coming from someone from College Station. But I don't think it has really. I think it was originally that, and then they made it their own thing. But I do not believe they're going to. Who knows? They may. Who knows? I mean, but it's Lubbock. You can't count anything. They're going to be loud and everything else. That should get you more pumped up and ready to play. You should be more ready to go on the road in a place like that because it's about you more than it's about even their own team. And that's something that you can kind of feed off of, that it is about we hate Texas. You know, Texas Tech, we like them, but we hate Texas. You can feed off of that. And I know that's, Texas Tech fans would probably not like that theory. That is a little bit a homer take on that one. I'll give you. Dexter says, the question they need to sign their center, Tyler Biadasz. It is. And the question for Biadasz, and this has kind of been what you have to worry about for the Cowboys, and what I think they've been thinking is, do you want to go get what is Biadasz asking for? Are we going to pay him now? Because the reason he was really good, because he was a good center, he wasn't great. He's not Travis Frederick. He's not a super great all-pro center, but he's a good, serviceable center. If you pay him like that and he's willing to come play for Texas as a reasonable center rate, or play for the Cowboys at a reasonable center rate, then sure. Then, yeah, you need to go get him back. I think they're a little worried that he may be asking for big money now because he got, that fourth-round salary for the last few years. And if, they get cocky, which the Cowboys have before, they'll say, well, we can go draft another center and we can go get, sign somebody for cheaper and make them into something great. I don't know if that'll be the case, but I know there's some other centers out there. They may feel if the price is too high for what they want to at least let him go test the market and see if they can go get somebody else. But I don't know. It's an interesting one with Biadasz because I know that they probably like to get it done, but I don't think they want to give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. Of all the players, they're like, man, we took a shot on you, taking you. We've been the team to help you get in that position. And Tyler Biadasz has every right to think on the flip side of that, man, I've helped you guys out a ton. So if we want to say both of them have that viewpoint, I don't know where the middle ground will be. We'll just have to see if he's going to give Jerry the hometown discount or not. If he doesn't, it could take a little bit longer, and they could look at some other options at center. That could definitely be a piece. And they could say, we're going to draft somebody, and we'll go get a makeover center. And I know Steven said they're going all in. I'll play the sound of that where it doesn't, all in, he kind of puts it in a different term. But But that I could see them doing that and going out and signing, a guy for a 1 or 2 year deal and drafting somebody to bring up behind him. That I could see them doing that if Biadasz wants too much money. But I'm with you. I think they need to figure out their center position. You got to figure out your O-line if you really want to go for it. But we'll see. And Tyron Smith, that question is going to be what it is. Jimmy the Gringo says, "Good afternoon, happy Tuesday, Patrick. Thank you, Big Fat Paul. I have no salt in the game. Who the Cowboys keep? Don't really care about it, but I do think their biggest will be Micah Parsons because he is the leader in the mouth of the team right now. He is being the mouth, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. And I would love to see Dylan Mitchell channel as Dennis Rodman and have a double-double type of game. I see Weaver and Hunter finally getting their offense going and taking pressure off Asmus. I'm praying with Tech in the last game in Lubbock. Hopefully there won't be any tortillas. Again, tortillas. I don't think the tortillas is a basketball thing. I could be off. If you got anybody from Lubbock listening, let me know if there's tortillas planned for tonight. I think Kendall Weaver, your offense more, I'd love to see him. He loves to attack the rim. I'd love to see him if he attacks the rim and you get you get somebody out and get one of the rim protectors out to dish that ball off to a Dylan Mitchell, ditch that ball off to a Dylan DeSue. If Warren Washington comes out on that play, I'd love to see Kendall Weaver get some assist getting it to the other guys because they don't have 3 or 4 big guys that are going to be, all stopping them. So if Kendall Weaver can draw traffic his way, and I'd love to see that, or if he's going to go inside, get fouled, go up strong, get down, and Kendall Weaver, we've seen, will go for it all and attack the rim with reckless abandon. We know he will do that. So that's kind of what I'd like to see with him. I don't think his three-point shot, I'd love to see it get better. It hasn't been great all season long. I don't expect it too much more. I think they're allowing him to shoot it a little bit more because they know he's a threat to attack the rim. So I think he may be able to get some open threes. If he hits them, great. But I attack the rim, get fouls, or get the center to come off of Dylan DeSue or Dylan Mitchell and try and get some easy points that way would be big. Thank you, Jimmy. And as also says, praying that we beat Tech in our final game in Lubbock. I agree with that. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back to the text line. Keep going on the poll, 512-447-3776. We'll get into some more NFL talk. We'll get into some NBA talk as well. We come back here on the Sports Complex in the Horn 1019, AM 1260, the Horn app, hornfm.com. Hour 2 here on the Sports Complex on the Horn. We've already talked some Big 12 basketball and Texas versus Texas Tech tonight. We will get more into that. I know there's more text about it. We'll keep talking about it. Keep those texts rolling in. We've also talked about the little women's basketball, Texas baseball taking on St. John's tonight. We'll get into that. Big fat poll of the day. Who is the most important person for the Cowboys to re-sign this offseason? Is it one of those big 3 names that we know need to get new contracts? Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott. Is it one of those? Or is it one of the guys that you have to bring back this next season? Is it somebody you feel they need to bring back, Tyron Smith or Tyler Biadasz on the offensive line? In the secondary, Gilmore, Jordan Lewis, Jonathan Hankins. You know, if you don't know what Mozzie Smith is, do you need to bring back that defensive tackle? That was the only thing keeping you from allowing 200 rushing yards a game. Do you need to bring that back? Do you want to bring back Tony Pollard? Because who else are you going to go get? You know, is anybody else going to be brought in? Are you going to draft somebody? Or do you think it's important to get Tony Pollard on a good deal? Because maybe his season wasn't great last year, but it'll be great next year. The potential's still there, but he was recovering from injury. What do you think? Maybe, especially if you get another back to help out there. Maybe it could be even better. Let me know what you think on the text line, 512-447-3776. We will get into some more NFL talk. Stephen Jones talked to the media today at the Combine. We had some other GMs talking about that as well. The NBA, there was another big injury a day ago or 2 days ago that we'll talk about, and some ramifications that it could have for Texas teams and across the NBA. Some people who could be interested in it. And all 3 Texas teams are in action tonight as well. We'll get into all of that here in the 5 o'clock hour. But let's get back to the text line for you guys, 512-447-3776. Keep these rolling in. We'll keep trying to get to all of them. My man Nate says, losing a center is tough. Bring back Biadasz. I agree. If you don't have a plan, I think bringing back Biadasz is there. I talked about it just a minute ago. I think there is issues of depending on how much his camp feels that he – you know, it's always that question. Are you trying to get paid for things you've already done? Or are you trying to get paid for things you're going to do? And in the NFL, we see guys who are those 4th, 5th, 6th round picks a lot of times trying to get paid for things they've already done. And that's just a bad way to negotiate with owners. They do not feel that they should pay you for the things you've already done and time served, that you were underpaid for those years, so you should be overpaid now. So I'm just curious to see. Maybe it won't be a problem and they'll get him re-signed right away and he'll be back on the team. I think it's a better option to bring him back than really trying to try something else when you're going to have so many other moving pieces on that defense this year to try and keep that offense, you know, that did perform well for most of the season, as much together as you can, other than the running game, of course. I keep that O-line, and, you know, if you're going to lose Tyron Smith, that's one big piece. Lose Biadasz and Smith would be 2 big pieces to lose. I'm just curious what that contract he's going to ask for was. Locksmith Ryan says, yesterday I suggested we should get rid of RT in order to draw good recruits. You said that Texas isn't going to pay the big bucks for a high-profile coach just for them to lose. Texas has the money, and doesn't CDC want all the sports to compete at top 10 national level, even though UT isn't a basketball school? Okay, so again, when we say draw good recruits, right now in 2024, Texas is 6th or 7th best recruiting class in the country. So if we're saying draw recruits, Rodney Terry is your guy. He's a great recruiter, and we have a better recruiting class. Some people say than North Carolina. Some people say than Kansas next season. Some people say, so we're up there. We're a top 10 recruiting class right now for next season. With Ron Holland and AJ Johnson, who were supposed to be there, we were a top 5 recruiting class with Rodney Terry, and now they walked away. So if Trey Johnson walks away, I get it. If Nick Cody walks away, then I get it. You got to say, okay, well, he's not able to keep him down the stretch. But if we look at last year as an anomaly and this year is what it will be, then he is a great recruiter. The question is not his recruiting. The question is, can he take that team of guys with only a couple top guys? But again, he has a top 10 recruiting class by pretty much every metric for 2024. So recruiting is not the problem. And again, throwing money at it, I think Texas has the money to throw at it. I just don't think the amount of money, I don't get where the disconnect is that you think that like Miami or UConn or Kansas, I don't know where these other schools where you're going to take people from can't match a Texas basketball offer. You're not going to double them up and pay him $20 million. You're going to pay him more than you're paying Sark to be the basketball coach. And they're making that money because it is a basketball school, because they don't spend all that money on the football program. That Calipari makes really good money. and Pitino can make good money, and you know, UConn and everywhere else, those guys can make good money as a coach there. So if we're saying, well, we'll pay you $3 million extra a year, you'll probably never win big because the school is going to get in your way every chance they can get. The players aren't going to want to come here the way they want to go over there, like Dan Hurley at UConn. UConn is a basketball school. They want to win basketball games. At Texas, we want to win basketball, but shut up, football's on. And I get that it's an overstatement, but it's true. When you're trying to get a hold of a donor and you're saying, man, I have a prospect on the line, but we need to make sure that NIL is going to work out. And it's football season. You're not going to get a call back. And at UConn, you will. And when you're trying to get, you know, better facilities, you're in line behind some other programs. And that's just the way it is. And it sucks, but that's the reality of the stress of doing it as a coach at Texas. There's less stress in the sense that you're not always 100%. The worry is for Kentucky, for UConn, for Kansas, for Duke and North Carolina. Look, they love football, but even in the offseason for basketball, they're talking basketball and what's going to happen and what are we going to do next season. At Texas, that's not the case. So there's less stress on that end, but it's just harder to do. So when I say you can't get a big coach, those coaches know that. There's only really like 5 or 6 great coaches in college basketball. I mean, look at what Duke and North Carolina, they brought guys up from within. Both those are massive schools with all the budget, and they both hired from within. Like, I get that it's easy to think that everything works like other sports where there's, you know, 25 coaches out there and they're all great and they'd all be a huge upgrade. It's just not that easy. The reality is you have to find people that are going to be the right fit. Then you have to hire their coaches. And then, so now you're saying you're going to pay him, you know, comparable to Sark, which is crazy because he hasn't won anything at Texas yet. And you're going to pay him up there an $8, $9, $10 million a year to come to Texas. And then you're going to pay his staff all close to $1 million a year and bring in this. And you got to pay out the guys you just fired. And you got to do it. I get Texas has the money, but for maybe another win in the tournament, and maybe it'll be the same thing. And you know, there's going to be down years there too. It's not going to be a we win. I mean, even Duke and North Carolina, these are basketball schools. Kansas, they don't win. They don't go the distance every year. There are years where they're back off. Now, their low ends are usually still around the tournament, but even Duke and North Carolina have missed the tournament before. They all have down years too. And I think Texas, if they win tonight, we're not even talking about missing the tournament. We're talking about a down year that was still a good year. I think there's just so much pressure that they went to the Elite Eight because Rodney Terry got him to the Elite Eight. Now, if he doesn't get him to the Elite Eight again, it's a failure. And that's just not the case. And firing a coach also makes other coaches not want to come here. Because if you say, well, you gave him a year, a very liked guy in college coaching, a guy that every single announcer would tell you deserved the job and that every coach around college basketball said deserved the job, and you fire him after one full season as a head coach, why would I want to go there? Why would I want to go where if I don't produce with young guys that I don't even know and who I can get in there, and if I don't produce in 1 year, goodbye? That wasn't enough? Like, you can't, it's just running a business the wrong way. That's why I'm passionate about it, is because it's running the business the wrong way. And when people talk about firing Rodney Terry after one season, you're saying, I want to start killing basketball and put it in a bad situation for the next 5 to 10 years because no one's going to want to touch it. And major coaches, assistant coaches, trainers, players are not going to want to go when they know that it's going to switch every single year at Texas, because if they don't go to the tournament and they don't build, then it's not going to be there. So I get it, and I'm not trying to get on you. I'm just saying to get rid of RT to draw good recruits is the first thing you said in that. We have the number 6 or 7 recruiting class on 2 different sites I looked at for 2024. If that's the reason, you're not looking into it enough, because we have recruits. He's recruiting well. And we had a guy who's going to be a top 5 pick in the draft next year in Ron Holland that he recruited and scouted and did all that, and it just didn't work out. Now, if you want to say transfers, to get better transfers, that's a different thing. Because the transfers we got in haven't been producing at the level they need to. But recruits, we're doing. Texter says 2080 for percentage to win tonight. Not a lot of love. A little hate there for the count. I get it. They've been playing really bad. I get it. Average Joe says, hey, guys, also when you play different sports, different muscle groups get a chance to heal every year. Yeah, and they different chance to heal and different chance to grow. That was a whole thing in The Last Dance with Michael Jordan when he was talking about going to baseball and having to change. When he came back, having to change his body back. Those are different things. Appreciate that one. And also in the famous words of Rick Barnes, let's go pick a fight. Yes, exactly. Let's get one more, and then we'll talk a little NFL, and we'll come back to it. Tex says, who is the first Longhorn drafted this year? Worthy. I think 80 and Murphy will be in the biggest steal. Everyone right now is saying Byron Murphy. Byron Murphy is projected by a lot of people top 15. He's the only guy basically in every single person's mock draft in the first round for Texas. Byron Murphy is thought to be the number one Longhorn picked by all categories. Now, after the Combine, that may change, but right now he's expected to go into the Combine and solidify that first-round pick selection. But Byron Murphy is expected to be the top pick for the Longhorns in the draft based on what everybody else is saying right now. Let's talk a little NFL. Stephen Jones spoke to the media today, cleared up or didn't clear up a few things, but I want to play these clips of audio for you of Stephen Jones talking with the Cowboys. When we talk about signing players, he was asked about contract extensions. He didn't want to go into it too far about the timetable, but he did say he wanted to re-sign some guys. Here's Stephen Jones when he was asked about those contract extensions and those big players that he wants to re-sign.
You know, you get to do everything you want to do with the salary cap. I don't think any team does. But, you know, we're certainly going to be able to, you know, go out and go to work and get the things done that we feel like we need to get done to be successful.
Do you want to do those deals this offseason?
Yeah, we're not, like I said, won't expound on any details, timing, amount.
No, not timing, but you said you wanted to do around 3 of them.
I'm not going to say when.
Okay.
So there's Stephen Jones saying, we want to get them done. Well, do you want to get them done this offseason? He says, I won't say when. He doesn't want to give up any negotiating points. Get that. He was also asked about what Jerry Jones meant when he said all in. Here's Stephen Jones for what Jerry Jones meant when he said they're going all in this offseason.
I've never known Jerry not to be all in any given year. But, you know, certainly, you know, we've got a great team put together. You know, I think, you know, the last 3 years, won a lot of football games, I think 36. And, you know, certainly where we have to improve is the postseason. You know, we're going to get the right kind of guys who step up and make big plays in the postseason. And, it's been a challenge in terms of our success there. And that's where we have to improve.
Are there any answers that you guys have kind of come up with as to what's going on?
You know, we're taking a holistic view of this thing, and we'll continue to look at it. Obviously, being here at the Combine is going to be, you know, a great time to spend some time in terms of looking not only at the young players that are going to be out there, but just spending time, you know, together internally, spending a lot of time talking about, you know, what we have to get accomplished, we think, in order to take the next step.
And that's really kind of the big point there is he says, I don't know when Jerry hasn't been all in, which should tell you he said that. It doesn't mean anything different. We all kind of knew that. It's going to be the same old offseason that it's always been. Now, they're going to try and go get these players re-signed. I'm not saying they're not going to try and take the steps to win a Super Bowl. Not saying that. But I don't think they're going to go all out, leverage their future, trade draft picks, you know, sign, you know, deals that are going to leave them cash strapped and struggling in 3 or 4 seasons. That doesn't seem like to be the case. Stephen Jones, sports, especially Catboy Stephen Jones, ain't going to be that guy either to push that. But he did bring up the point at the end of what the Combine really is. As we get into Combine week and people start to look around it, for Texas fans, it's going to be fun because there is a few more guys at this Combine for Texas that are going to be doing the events, that have a shot to be drafted high. They're going to be featured. We get to see our 2 wide receivers in Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell run the 40, which is going to be a lot of fun to watch. We get to see some of these guys go in, but what the real fun of the Combine is 2 pieces. One, all the leaked medical reports, finding guys and, you know, those reports where we start to hear the rumors of guys not being healthy enough or being too healthy, you know, having something that they're not sure about. But the reality is the reports that come out when these teams start talking, because they're all starting to be in the same room, and we get to see the offseason really start moving for the NFL while this Combine's happening. We said it a week ago. Justin Fields, when they made the trade of the number 1 pick, the Bears did, and kept Justin Fields a year ago. That was a week after the Combine. That was with conversations during when they looked at the players, they made all their decisions, and that decision was made by the Combine. Now they're saying they kind of want before, but this is the deciding part for a lot of people's off seasons when they see players and they get to fall in love with rookies and fall in love with draft picks, or they get to walk away and say, I don't fall in love with any of those guys. So watching the Combine is a fun thing to watch in the NFL because you get to see these teams and just watch the reporting around it, watch the news that comes out during it. As someone who covers this every day, the Combine is great for the game because it does bring up a lot more people, a lot more reports, a lot more conversations, and we get to see the ball start rolling some during the Combine. But that's the reality. Stephen Jones, he came out today and he said, we want to sign everybody, but we're not going to tell you when. He said the culture doesn't have an issue. I could play that sound too, but it's the same thing. It's him saying the culture, we don't think it's an issue. We just need to get guys who play better in the playoffs, which tells me that you don't understand what you're talking about in that one. Or just that you don't understand what we mean by the words culture. What we mean is, do you have a team that you feel can go all the way to Super Bowl? Well, we just need to get the right players. And go, well, your culture is supposed to help develop the right players, and they go hand in hand. I'll give you that. But it wasn't the answer I don't think most people wanted. And also the line, I don't know when Jerry hasn't been all in. That right there is the contradictory to the all. Jerry Jones says we're going all in. Stephen Jones says, I don't know when we haven't been all in. And he said, okay. So it looks like more of the same, which is not a bad thing. They're a 12-win team. They're doing all right. Will they be able to pull it off? Get some more good draft picks. But that was an interesting couple clips there from Stephen Jones there at the Combine. Also, just of note, GM Joel Schoen from the Giants has come out where Saquon Barkley has been tied very heavily to the Texans and basically said, we're going to play hardball with Saquon Barkley, and the franchise tag is not off the table. We could franchise tag him again. We got some money to throw around. We're not going to be any good. Why not screw this guy's career over and not let him leave? Because we know that he's kind of our selling point right now for our offense, because Daniel Jones sure ain't it, and we don't have a wide receiver. So they want to keep Saquon Barkley. For Texans fans that were hoping to get Saquon Barkley, not great news to see that one come in. Why don't we take a break? We'll come back, get back to the text line, and get to some NBA talk as well when we come back here on the Sports Complex in the Horn 1019, AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex here on the Horn on a Tuesday afternoon. I'm just trying to play some nice yacht rock, lower my blood pressure a little bit. Hoping that Texas gets that win today, so it lowers it a little bit more. I want to get back to that text line. I get you guys, and I'm being passionate about things. And I appreciate everybody texting in. I don't agree necessarily with everybody. I appreciate you and appreciate your points of view. I want to have the conversation with you. I want to give you the time of day to give you the conversation. Read what you have to say, and we'll go with from there. But I want to keep it. I'm trying to keep it classy as much as I can. We just have different viewpoints. Back on the text line. Also, if you want to do big fat poll today, it is who should the Cowboys prioritize? Who is the first guy? Who they need to sign this offseason for the Cowboys? Is the big fat poll today. Text line 512-447-3776. CBA Scott says, what do you know about the rumors, the Big Ten and A&M? They're going to talk, but I doubt that there's going to be any switches right now until they solidify what's going to happen with the new rules and everything else that we're starting to see. The crumbling of the NCAA and the college football playoff and all of that stuff is going to be taking over. I wouldn't imagine there be any changes, but of course A&M wants to go and do whatever else. They care more about Texas than they care about themselves at points. I saw an article today that was great from A&M fans. That was basically the reason why A&M was going to be better than Texas in the SEC. And the points were best case scenario for everything A&M is going to happen. Worst case scenario for everything Texas is going to happen. And it couldn't just go, well, maybe we'll be decent and they'll be not as good. It was Texas will have the worst season of all time and A&M will be the greatest. It's just a weird thing. And I know there's Texas fans who care a ton about that rivalry too. I'm not necessarily I like the rivalry. It's fun. I don't necessarily have the disdain or hatred of any of it as some other people do. But I think that they're trying to reach out. They're trying to get things done. They did go to the SEC before. They could try to move to the Big Ten. But my guess is the Big Ten and the SEC are trying to figure things out, that there may be somewhat of a truce between the two until we get to the point of, figuring out the new rules outside of the NCAA. And then that could happen. Then it could happen then. But I don't know if they're going to risk a breach for A&M. I don't know if they're going to do that. Texter says, Texas Tech, big man Warren Washington. Oh, no, that was from this morning. Texas Tech, this is exactly the type of game that Texas Tech blows in and Texas Tech wins. As a Texas Tech fan, I've been dreading this one. I'm hoping that's true, man. Not for your sake, but for mine. And Texas Tech fan here, I don't think I've ever seen tortillas thrown at a basketball game there. I don't think so either. And a reminder, this isn't the last time Texas is going to Texas Tech. It's the last time the basketball team is. The baseball team's going to be in Lubbock in 2 weeks. We're sending the baseball team up there in 2 weeks. So we'll be in Lubbock. The Longhorns will be in Lubbock again in 2 weeks. This is the last basketball game, but it's not the last match between the two. I think there's still a tennis match, and there's some other events that'll be done between the two schools before Texas goes off to the SEC. So there is that. Texter says, if the basketball team comes out flat again, it'll be another blowout road loss for this Longhorns team. It could be. If they come out flat again, I'm hoping they'll be able to make an attempt to push back. I know Texas Tech has come out flat a few times this season as well, so you hope to be able to fight into it. The bigger question is the last 8 minutes. But yeah, they could get blown out again. It could be the end of the season. I think it was you played two really, really good teams in Houston and Kansas, and Houston especially just really, really good. That kind of makes everything look worse and worse and worse than it actually is. They're not great, but I don't think they're as bad as people are making them out to be. Against some of these teams. They're just, they're having trouble competing with the really talented teams. And Texas Tech is a good team. They're just not the really talented team with the best players. That is, and Houston is a team that is just a solid unit that has been put together by Kelvin Sampson. Done a great job there in Houston. Locksmith Ryan says, love the passion, Patrick. Appreciate that. Texas says, the biggest problem is that RT hasn't replaced the coaches to replace his position under Beard. Plus the other one's lost and didn't have a plan B. On the two players we lost before the season. No, and I mean, there isn't really a plan B if guys leave right before signing day. You're kind of behind the 8 ball, and they got screwed. It is what it is. Luckily for college basketball, you can rebuild very quickly in college basketball, and this could be a really, really good program again in 2 years. It could be a good program again next season. A ranked team, especially going to the SEC, I think they'll be winning a lot more games in the SEC when we get there. Texter is, so can RT develop is the question. You know the answer is he can't develop. I find that insane to believe that we're going to base that off of 2 players this season. Again, this is you, Dave Ram. This is you saying this. You just go, I don't like the guy. I don't like Rodney Terry. I will give him zero benefit of the doubt in anything. We're saying he can't develop any players, even though that's not to be seen. We held on to other coaches too long that couldn't develop. Why do you love RT so much? I'm saying 2 seasons. You won't even give the guy 2 seasons? I'm saying if you fire coaches every year, coaches don't want to come here. And your pessimism about the basketball program because we're a football school is ridiculous. You're the reason why we can't be consistently competitive in basketball year in and year out. I'm not saying to win the national championship every year, but at least competitive in the conference and get to the second week and consistently in the big dance. We have never been that school, Dave Ram. And I get we want to be. But to pretend that if we throw $50 million at the basketball program, we'll suddenly be great is ignorant. We cannot just say throw $50 million. Now, if you want to have actual plans, but all right, let's go talk Jay Wright. Jay Wright, that everybody's mentioned on this text line. You know what he said yesterday? I'm done coaching. They asked him about the Ohio State job. He says, I'm done coaching. So cross him off your list. Eric Musselman, they suck at Arkansas this year. Cross him off your list. Kelvin Sampson last season said, I'm not coming. Stop. When I'm telling you that these guys don't want to come here, it's not because I'm bitter and pessimistic. It's because I read the news. They don't want to come here. They want to get paid somewhere else because they don't want to deal with having one season and people believing that if you don't make it to the second weekend every single year, that you're a failure. Hubert Davis didn't make it to the second season last year, and he could win a national championship this year with North Carolina, but people wanted him fired. I give it time, man. That's all I'm saying is give him time. Don't say you can't develop players because we've seen 3 months of basketball. That's what's crazy. We saw 3 months of basketball, and you're saying this guy can't develop talent. Kendall Weaver, were you going to say he didn't develop him? We're saying he didn't develop Max Abmas, who's a graduate transfer, and IT Horton, who's a graduate transfer. So 2 seniors weren't developed, and that's the problem. This is why I'm upset, is because you guys don't want to wait. You want to cut the head off because for some reason you hate RT, and I don't get it. That's why I don't love RT. I don't get the hatred for a coach who hasn't done anything terribly wrong. Now, do I despise the fact that we're not getting to the free throw line? Yes. If we want to have those discussions. But fire the coach after 1 season and go spend $10 million and that'll fix the problem. That's crazy to me. That's crazy to me. And it always will be. I'm going to try and calm down now. Right Guy from New Mexico says, why does every interview with the Joneses sound like it's being done in an FBI interrogation room? Because half of them are, I think. It says, even though the NCAA finally gets what it deserves, especially after the Tennessee ruling, I still believe the NIL needs to be restructured. What do you think? It does. There needs to be rules. But the NCAA needs to go away. There needs to be other people in charge of it. The NCAA needs to get it done. Let's see. Chan says, this is the last game ever for a long, long time. Might throw the tortillas. But again, we'll be back in 2 weeks. I'd like to see Max A attack the paint if his shots aren't falling. RT must sit him down, then bring in IT Horton. RT must also help with some of the pick and rolls to enable Max to make closer and open shots, my humble opinion. I agree, the 2-man game, you got to get him more involved in that. I think they're just collapsing off of it. But hopefully they'll be able to use that and get some open shots against a team that's allowed them to do that before. He also says, man, if we fire RT after 1 year, bad optics at Texas. First black coach at Notre Dame was fired too soon, 2 years ago. I mean, Shaka Smart was the first black basketball. I mean, like, he was a coach last. So I don't think it's that so much as I think it's bad optics to fire a coach who took you to the lead after 1 season pretending he didn't do it. I think that's really bad optics. Knowing the guys that when I was sitting at the table and when I was talking to Fran Fraschilla and you talked to whoever who was announcing the games, the general thought among the basketball community is, why is Texas not hired Rodney Terry? Texas looks like fools. They look like idiots for not hiring him. That was the general consensus of the basketball community. So when everybody says fire him now, I'm telling you what I heard from guys that have been doing this for 20, 30 years, that they said Rodney Terry's a great guy, a great coach. He should be the next head coach of Texas. Look at what he's doing. If they don't hire him, why would anybody want to come here? That's why I'm saying this. It's not because it's just me. It's because everyone I've talked to in the basketball world has this one viewpoint. And now you could complain and criticize what he's doing, but to throw the baby out with the bathwater and pretend that everything good he did was some other astronomical thing that somebody else did and it would have happened in the world without him, And every bad thing that has happened at Texas basketball for last year should be solely put on his shoulders. And if you go get a 65-year-old white guy who's won 20 years ago when he was paying players under the table, and that's not Jay Wright, but Jay Wright again said that he'd not come back to coaching for Ohio State. I don't know why, I just don't think he'd come to Texas either. He said he was done. He doesn't want to coach. And I think he's done. I don't think he wants to. He's 62 years old. He doesn't want to rebuild another program, is what I think. Texters, some LRB like Will Ferrell and the other guys, all good. Nate laughing. Patrick is so woke. Very, yes. What am I woke about again? I don't know what I'm woke about. Texas, Dave Ram again. So because they suck this year, it means something for them, but not when RT is sucking. But they don't suck. Like, again, Max A. Smith sucks this last 2 weeks because they're guarding him better than he's ever been guarded. You can't tell me that at Oral Roberts, he was going up against the best NBA caliber players. He wasn't. That's why he's not playing as well. I.T. Horton was at UCF. They were not a Big 12 school last year. He's playing against better competition. The shots are going down harder. Yes. Look, I know the difference. I knew when I played against guys that were better than me because I could beat up on some guys that were not as good. If I went to the pickup court, I could play. If I went to a better pickup court, I would get dominated. Because I wasn't a good enough player. There's gigantic levels of difference between these guys. Max A. Smith is like 5'11". That's a problem. And he hasn't been able to do it. Dex says, LOL, too many experts. Man, Father Ryan, Pat getting big bad. I'm not the biggest RT fan, but he deserves more time for a fair shake. That's all I'm saying. That's like my main point across all of this is give the guy another year, pretending that, and again, if he wins tonight, we're more than likely in the tournament. And y'all are like, doesn't matter. Even if we make the tournament. And look, if we win a national championship this year, then he's fine. But if anything other than that, fire him and go bring somebody else in. I just don't get it. Dexter says they want to fire Sark after 1 year. Yes, they did. They did want to fire Sark after 1 year. I'm glad we didn't fire Sark after 1 year. It says, well, RW says. And Dave Ram says, bad optics not to hire him because of the season last year. It was a pity hire because of the look it would have had if we would have not hired him, not the players. You said the other coaches' teams were losing, so Musselman sucks. No, I was saying if we're going to go by the same ruling, that if you said that if you lose this many games, if you're not going to the tournament, you suck, I'm just using your words against you. That's all I'm doing. I don't think Eric Musselman sucks. I think that he was the hotshot coach last season, and he's having a year, and he'll rebuild the Arkansas program, and they'll be fine again. I'm just saying if you think that Rodney Terry sucks because they're a slightly below 500 team in Big 12 play, and again will be 500 team in Big 12 play, the best conference in basketball if they win tonight, then Eric Musselman is complete garbage. I don't think that's the case because I don't believe that coaches are defined by one season where they misjudge the players they had on their team. That's me, though. I'm just trying to be the rational person in the room and not throwing him out. And when you keep saying it's a pity hire, are you saying, Dave Ram, that you are clearly, that you know better than everybody unanimously across the board that works for every major like they all wanted, everyone you talked to. The conversation was, how is he not already the coach? How is he not already the coach? That's not a pity hire. That's a holy crap. This guy got put into an unwinnable situation and took a team to the Elite Eight. This guy got put in a situation that would have crushed a lot of other coaches and a lot of other teams, and he went to the Elite Eight. That's what he said. He does have, we're not, if he wins tonight, is that promise? If we're 500 in the Big 12 with this roster, is that promise? What is promised to you, Dave Ram? Tell me what the promise you want to see. Because unrealistic expectations should not be the promise. The promise is next season. The promise is we keep our recruiting class and we look much better next season. That's the reality. We'll see. And RT looks lost on the sideline. That's your opinion. You don't like him. You just don't like him. He doesn't look lost on the sideline. He looks like RT's always looked. I'm not going with that one. Texas says, Patrick, don't let these myopic morons get you worked up. Anybody who's not willing to give Ronnie Terry a couple years is just an idiot. I don't believe they're idiots. I believe they're wrong. I don't believe they're idiots. I believe Dave Ram's a good man. I believe he's gotten his opinion, that he's got an opinion that Rodney Terry is not as good as what he is. I think he's got an opinion that Rodney Terry that does not deserve the position for any reason, and that's not going to change. And unless he wins a national championship or at least gets us to a championship game, I don't think Dave Ram, whatever. I think if he took us to the second weekend 5 years in a row, that would not be enough. That's my opinion, but maybe I'm wrong. I think he wants to see Texas win as much as I do. We just have very different viewpoints of I think what he wants to do will help kill the program, and he thinks what I want to do would help kill the program. We both want to see Texas win. I just on the viewpoint that building a program is done by building the program, not by consistently cutting the legs out from underneath it to go up again. Now, Shaka was probably there too long. I can agree with you on that. I like Shaka Smart a lot, but I could have told you he was probably there too long, and I don't think they just had the right coach. I think there was points where he was going to be gone 2 or 3 years before he was, but they couldn't find a replacement that was better than Shaka. I think that was more the issue was, well, we can't fire him and not bring somebody else in. And when Chris Beard came along and was available and everything went downhill with Shaka, they said, well, yeah, that's the guy. That's a perfect fit. So I think there was an issue of it got to there eventually because they found the right guy. But when we keep just making up names that don't want to come to Texas, pretending that they're the guy, and then the reality is we're going to bring in somebody who's not necessarily the greatest coach and doesn't know how to recruit Texas and doesn't know how to work at a program like Texas. And when I say it's a football school, not a basketball school, I'm not saying that people don't care about basketball. I'm saying that it's second. And a lot of these guys don't understand that because they come from basketball school backgrounds, because they don't have a gigantic stadium and a gigantic fan base and the best fan base in football. They don't have those things, so they're not used to it. I don't think he's a moron. I don't think he's an idiot. I think Dave Ram and I disagree about how to get the program there. We both agree he should get another year. But to come out every year and spit vitriol and hatred towards a guy who just go, he's not good enough, and then wonder why the team can't rebound because everyone thinks that they suck so bad, and I think that they could rebound. I think they can win tonight, a game 50-50. You guys aren't even giving that shot. Dexter says, Max Abmas just isn't who we thought he was. Would be just can't play up to the competition consistently, which is hurting the team in these close games. Yeah, I agree. I think that's a lot of it. And I like Max Abmas. I think he's a good guy. I'm glad he came to Texas, but it was really what they thought they were going to build is just not what they got. And unfortunately, that's what it is. Texas says, we do not rebuild at Texas anymore. We just buy them players now. It's all about the Benjamins. You can't, honestly, look at a guy like Hunter Dickinson for Kansas. There's no reason he wasn't here if we had them. He didn't even look at Texas. And now I don't know if he would have been the best culture fit or anything else for Texas, but it wasn't like he wanted to come here and we couldn't put the money here. And he just didn't want to come here. It wasn't a thing. He wanted to go with the best shot to get to the NBA, and he felt the best shot was to go to Kansas. He said, leaving Michigan, I don't like where this is headed. I'm going to go to Kansas, and that's what happened. Now, if we go into next season and, Dylan Mitchell doesn't go to the NBA and he transfers to another school and Chris Johnson transfers and Pryor transfers and Trey Johnson, then yeah, we can have a real conversation about, hey, man, this program is in bad shape. But pretending that we just assume that it's going to happen because we personally don't like a guy. Because, I can tell you I have not always been the biggest Vic Schaefer fan. I've always had respect for the guy. But I haven't always been the biggest fan. But I'll tell you, I never wanted him fired. I just thought, you know what, I'm not his biggest fan. But I'll tell you this, he's doing a great job this year. I think he's coach of the year this year in women's basketball. But I wasn't always the biggest fan. Just said, all right, there's some things philosophically I disagree with how he's coaching. But at the same point, he's getting the job done. He knew what he was doing. I didn't want him fired. Text here, we selling tickets to the Dave Ram, Patrick Davis MMA fight. I don't fight, man. I just yell on the radio. All right, I'll tell you what. I'm going to calm down. We'll just take our last break. We'll come back. We'll finish to wrap it up the text line. We may throw in some NBA talk as well if we got some time. I'm sorry, I ran too much about that. Dave Ram knows how to get me riled up. I get that. I appreciate all you guys texting in. Keep it coming. It's a Tuesday, so it's fun to get riled up. And I think they turned the AC off in the building at 5 o'clock. So by the time it gets to 5:30, 5:45, I'm getting pretty hot now. I'm starting to sweat a little bit. So I think that adds into all this aspect of me getting riled up. It's not just you on the don't give yourself all the credit on the text line. I think they're cutting off the AC in the building, and I'm getting hot. That's what's happening. We'll come back though here on the Sports Complex here on the Horn 101.9 AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back to wrap things up here on the Horn. I may need a drink after this. You guys get me all riled up here. I'm telling you, I think it's because AC went off. I'm getting all riled up because AC went off. I appreciate all you guys on the text line. Let's try and get to some of these before I got to get out of here. Appreciate you guys. Text says, doesn't matter who the coach is, they're going to complain. There's some that will. It's called patience, and a lot of people do not have it. Yeah, okay, I get that. And I think it's just a different game plan that we want to have. Text says, let's split the difference. Maybe we can literally throw money at the problem with the defensive players pelting the opposing teams as they try to shoot. I think that would go with the tortillas. I don't know if that's going to work, but I appreciate it. I think the haters out there are sending you texts about RT to get you worked up. They always are, man. They're always coming after me. Text says, I am the camp of if there's a no-brain hire, take them. But if there isn't, let's just give them a couple years. I agree. There is no-brain hire. It just isn't. I don't even know who the coach right now in college basketball is that, like, if Dan Hurley said, I want to come, then yeah, you take Dan Hurley. But I don't know if, like, there isn't another guy that's, and there's guys that'll have one really good season and then everybody thinks they're the next best thing. And that's not quite how it works. If anybody thinks that, you got to build a program and you get to it. Anyone deserves 2 years. I'm with you there. Brian from the ranch says, I think folks like me are still frustrated that Beard got run out. RT is an important part of the answer, but Beard was the guy to put it all together. I think Beard had a lot of good things. I think Beard was not, the answer that everybody thinks that he was going to be this great win a championship every year coach either. He's a good coach. He's good, but, he did some things that he can't do at Texas. And that's part of it. You just can't do the things he did or, allegedly did or walked away from, you just can't do it. And, I get that you want to say that, but when you realize when you saw what just happened at Ole Miss, how those fans were coming after him at Ole Miss, those are the types of things that Texas does not want that headache. And that's just a reality of that. Texter says, how can the NIL be better structured because college football is looking more and more like the NFL, turning students into employees and losing its pageantry? I do not have enough time to get to that in the next 50 or 60 seconds. But in reality, it just needs to be regulated. You just need to be able to go in and make sure that players are going to make money. Players are going to go into it. But I think once you start regulating it and trying to make sure, and I also think the numbers that people say that they're getting paid a lot of times are completely fabricated to make people hate NIL. There's a lot of times where I've heard from people that work in NIL, a guy's making, really good. He's making six figures. And then someone will come out and say that he made, $7 million. And it's just not true. Like Arch Manning didn't take any NIL money and they still said he made $5 million. That's we just know that that's a blatant lie. He was projected that he could, but he didn't. So we know that's a lie. So there's that too. You have to figure that out. Nate says some caller sticks to fire, says to fire RT, and someone says stick to sports, then just hearing the rage from the speakers. Yeah, I get it. I get you, Nate. Texter says RT is awesome. Texter says much more sports entertaining than other people. Smug condescending comments. Appreciate that. I don't want to talk bad about anybody else. I don't want to talk bad about that. I don't need to do that. We don't need to take shots at other people and say their name. We're the best. We don't got to mention the others. You don't look down, right, guys? Appreciate it. Love the show. Appreciate you, Chan. And Dave Rand, I'll buy you a drink. But hey, man, we're having a big party in May. I'll tell you that. I can't announce the details yet. But in May, late May, we're having a big party. I'm throwing it. So we'll have a big party then. I'm inviting all you guys out there. We'll have a good old time. And what do I have against Vic? He's showing nothing but promise. I thought he did. I thought he was underachieving and had some tactics I was not a huge fan of early on. But I've seen his progress and what he's done with the program. But I thought he underachieved some early on, especially in tournament time. I'm hoping he turns that around this year and gets better. Again, didn't want him fired. Just thought there were some things that I wasn't a fan of. We'll come back tomorrow and do this all over again. Hopefully they'll keep the AC on, man. Until tomorrow, though, be kind, be safe, keep your underwear clean. We'll see you right back here tomorrow for more Sports Complex.